Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to the newest episode of Uncovering the Underground radio show, brought to you by Brutal Business Entertainment and Celestial Oddities Radio. As always, I'll be your host on this encapsulating and enthralling journey into underground entertainment. My name is Reverend Frater Crow, and I want to thank you for listening in tonight. Whether listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded it to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Just make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on whatever platform you might be listening in from, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, Google, Amazon, or any of the other platforms in between that I might have forgotten the name. We are across all of them, so feel free to listen where you want. But as you click those buttons, it moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives. And folks, there's something for absolutely everyone that's a fan of underground entertainment. Whether it be this show where we talk about music to modeling to stars of the screen, oddity and comedies and everything in between, or it be our other show, Knights of the Nephilim podcast, based on esoteric, doctrine, ceremonial and ritual magic and the occult, or it be our third show, Pair of Normal Guys or Celestial Oddities Pair of Normal Guys podcast, where we talk over supernatural and paranormal phenomena. We deep dive into subject matter, bring on very large names within both of those scenes and interview them, whether it be some of the biggest occultists in the world, whether it be some of the biggest paranormal investigators or researchers in the world, or it be this show and it just be some awesome badass bands and underground entertainment. We bring you a lot of fun stuff, so make sure you jump back through some of our past episodes. This is Season 2, Episode 16 this evening, so 16 episodes just this season, 65 last season. So you have your pick of quite a few, episodes, and then, my other shows, another 50, 60 episodes between those two shows, maybe more. You lose track after a while, folks, but what I'm saying is there's a lot out there, so feel free to jump through and check them out. I suggest it. Share them around to your friends and get the word out there. Great stuff. We do appreciate all your support. Now, if you've missed any of the past episodes of this season specifically, please go back and check them out. We've had some great death metal bands, some great bands I don't even really have a name for. I mean, we go with a lot of names: atmospheric, progressive, ambient, like 15 names in a band's title of what they are, just because they really can't be described in a certain title. There's been a lot of fun music on this season. We've had great models on this season. We have had, Jeremy Lee Pauley, the world's leading specialist in anthropodermic bibliopagy, which is binding books in human skin. He's a human wet skin specialist, restoration specialist. We've had some great guests on, so make sure you go check them out. It's always a blast here in Uncovering the Underground, and we appreciate your support. Now, we do want to say, if you want to not only listen live, but you also want to have the opportunity to be able to talk with us during the show, go through Spreaker.com. That is Spreaker, so speaker with an R in it. You can go through the Spreaker app on the app market or through Spreaker.com. That is our hosting platform. That will allow you not only to listen into the show that you can do through all the other platforms I named, but it does give one additional feature, which is the instant messenger feature. Allows you to talk to us during the show, ask our guests questions, and just give your input, and I will read all of them out off the list online on the show. So we always encourage that. It's always a great time, and we like you guys being a part of this. Lastly, before we jump into tonight's episode, if you have any suggestions you want to see us do, not do differently, who you want to see us have on the show next season, any of the above, you can send us a message at celestialoddities@gmail.com. Again, that is celestialoddities@gmail.com. You can message the personal Frater Crow Facebook page, the Brutal Business Entertainment Facebook page, the Uncovering the Underground group page, which I suggest you all join, just because it's a great community to be able to talk with people and find out about, what we're doing on the show. And, I will get back to you as quick as I can, always within 1 to 2 days at max. And I appreciate each and every one of your feedback. It's always, certainly welcomed. Now, tonight, We're going to tell you a little bit about who we have on the line, a little bit about them, and jump into a wonderful interview with them. Tonight, we have The Fall of Me. Now, The Fall of Me consists of Chelsea Rittenauer, Donnie Kemp, Paul Lancaster, and Tony Slaughter. And they are, and I'll read it from the perspective that they wrote, The Fall of Me is a dark, melodic metal band with a Gothic flair. Each member plays their own character, representing various demons and a fallen angel. The band embodies all things dark and ominous, like a looming shadow, and often writes with these themes in mind. They have mastered combining aggressive instrumentation with sweeping vocal lines, crafting a unique blend that is both beautiful and heavy. Now, on the line with us this evening, folks, we do have Chelsea, Paul, and Donnie. So that would be the vocalist, that would be the guitarist, and the bassist. The only one we are missing is Tony, who is their drummer. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it this evening, but we do have 3 out of the 4, and we're certainly going to get to know them a little bit better. Now, as we mentioned in their bio, they each have taken on a alternate persona, and I would like to go over that a little bit. We have Paul goes by Locrian, we have Donnie goes by Abaddon, and we have Chelsea, which goes by Ariok. And we'll dive a little bit into their characters, their actual selves, their band, and much, much more this evening. So as I always say, crack open a few beers, or light up a joint, crack open some beers, kick up your feet, and lend me your ears as we dig in together and uncover the underground with The Fall of Me. How you guys doing this evening?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, doing great. Can't complain. Beautiful day. Always nice to be on the air and talking to great bands. So thank you for coming out this evening and joining me. And I look forward to finding more out about you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Oh, not a problem. So I like to start traditional at each and every episode. For the fans that listen every week, they're probably like, man, switch it up, but I won't. I think it's important to start traditional on the very first question. Then after that, it's just completely different. And I like to ask how the band really came together. Now, I know you were a newly formed band, only started at the beginning of 2021, but for the folks listening out there, very impressive that these guys, in only a little over a year, have been able to put out a very solid, professional sounding EP, have put out numerous music videos, have done great promo shoots for themselves, and promoted themselves very nicely. So one coming across their page would not know by mere discovery that they are so new, but they are new to the scene. And I love to see someone coming out the gate so strong. So I'm going to actually start with Chelsea on this one. Chelsea, how did you guys come together as a band? I mean, where did this start? Where did the idea for The Fall of Me really begin?
I think it was a little bit of an accident. So Paul and I needed to rehearse for a charity event, kind of, I guess you'd call it that. Yeah. I was asked to play a set, and we were doing a bunch of cover songs, and Paul was like, hey, I have some riffs. If you'd like to hear them, see what you can do with them. Now, Paul and I had met a few years earlier, and we really wanted to work together, but the timing just was not right. So fast forward to 2021, or wait, that was the end of 2020, correct? It was the end of 2020. We're in this rehearsal together, and he shows me these riffs, and there was this one riff he showed me, which ended up being the song The Fall of Me. That was the first song that we wrote together. He played the riff. I started kind of scatting over it. We liked where it was going, and each time that we got together, we just expanded upon that. I added lyrics, and then we had a session where we both added some lyrics, and we wrote a song. And it worked. Everything meshed really, really well. And we were like, wow, we have something here. And we started talking about expanding things, actually maybe starting a band, getting other people involved. Paul said that he knew Donnie. I had actually interviewed Donnie before because I was hosting a show called Music Talks through Armstrong Cable. And I interviewed Donnie and met him in his former band. They were on my show. And it just kind of all fell together. And then Paul, myself, and Donnie got together in a room. We started jamming. We started playing. Paul had a couple songs ready to go. Donnie had a song ready to go. We wrote some material together, and here we are.
It's interesting how sometimes things just fall into place kind of unexpectedly. And I think a lot of times the best, groups or best projects usually do come together somewhat of an odd way. It might still be somewhat planned, but it's still a lot of times falls into our lap.
It really did.
Yeah,
this whole thing really just it fell into our lap. It happened on an accident, and it works. So
that's all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, the two of you knew each other, you were working together, then you end up bumping into an affiliate that you had before, and then it ends up becoming, part of the group. And it's weird how, the currents move, and they just kind of put you at the right place at the right time. If it's meant to be, it's going to be. And it sounds like it was. I mean, you guys, like I said, in a matter of a year, a little over a year, you've done quite well. I mean, the videos, they have a professional look, obviously a professional sound. I mean, great look to it. The EP it's phenomenal. It sounds great. The promotion pictures you guys have done, or the promo pics, I mean, they look great. So, as I said, someone coming across you guys would say, "Oh, wow, these guys are dope," and have no idea that most bands their first year really haven't done much of anything. I mean, they're just still working on their first kind of little project to put out. They haven't even began to venture into the music video category yet, which I give you guys kudos on. I have released quite a few music videos myself in music over the years, and I was always a big advocate for music videos and the visualization for an artist. And unfortunately, know so many great bands or so many great individual solo artists that have phenomenal sounding EPs or full-length albums. They have great pictures, but the one thing that they don't ever seem to invest money into is the music videos for some reason. Now, some do, but there are a lot that don't. And there's groups I know have been around for years, and I'm like, when are you guys going to do a music video? I don't know, sometime we'll get around to it. And I'm thinking that's the biggest mistake you can make. Do the music video now.
Social media is so powerful. That's how you get your music out there nowadays. And you have to have a visual representation to go along with your music, because that's what attracts the younger generation. So you have to have all those social media platforms. You have to have visuals to go along with everything. That's what catches people's eyes. That's what they're used to. So it's kind of necessary in today's market.
It is. I mean, the world at this point is very visual driven. Now, don't get me wrong. We love listening to music, but something about visualization sticks in our mind. It stays with us. It does something to us. So you can have an amazing album and still do very, very well. But if you release two music videos, maybe three music videos from that album, you're going to do a lot more on sales of the album itself. You're going to get a lot more fans that you wouldn't have gotten, because on YouTube, people just listen and click random videos, and they just click on your video, which they wouldn't have found you on Amazon or anywhere else. So they just click this random video and watch and say, "Oh shit, I like these guys," and then they go check out your album or your EP, and they say, "All right," So it leads. It's a different avenue or bridge that if you don't build, you're not going to have anybody crossing it, and that's unfortunate. So kudos to you guys. I mean, you've only released the EP so far, but you have, to my knowledge at least, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have 3 music videos right now. You have Temptation, you have Parasite, and you have Fall that I know of.
Yeah, Temptation hasn't released yet. Temptation is officially coming out June 3rd. Now, it is just a lyric music video, but still, it's still very cool. And Temptation is an interesting track, and hopefully we can talk about it more later, because it's a duet. And there are 2 completely different lines and different lyrics going on at the same time. So it felt like a lyric video was appropriate, because the song very much tells a story, and to follow along lyrically is going to help.
Well, and I think actually that's another strong tool right there. Lyric videos, even so, if you're an artist out there and you're listening and you're like, "Well, I don't have the money for a music video," or "I don't know if I want to make a move for a music video," you know what? At least do the lyric video. Lyric videos can be huge. You literally don't even have to have an actual music video. If you get a really nice lyric video together, that right there can be it. Because and not so much in your guys' music, but I interview a lot of death metal bands. And there's a lot of people who love death metal. But unless you're posting your lyrics up somewhere and no one has any idea what it is, they're like, man, this band's dope. But I have no fucking clue what they're saying. And sometimes you do. It just depends on the vocals. I mean, like a Lamb of God type band, you can understand what Randy Blythe says during his lyrics, so you really don't need his lyrics. But when you go to something like Annotations of an Autopsy, or you go to Vulvodynia and some of these other bands, I mean, you have no idea what they're talking or they're saying unless you have their lyrics up. So if they release a lyric video, you don't have to have a music video, but to follow along with it, it adds a whole new layer to being a fan and really connecting with the band. Especially if you're a good
really called for that.
What was that?
Temptation really called for a lyric video.
It sounds like it.
A lot going on.
Well, it makes sense, especially with a duet. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense to have the two layers being seen so that you can kind of feel both layers at the same time. So I definitely like that.
Now, and it's not a traditional, male part, female part, back and forth. They're on top of each other. They're, like you said, they're layered. So it definitely helped.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a lot to take in, but it's not a lot to take in. So if you can read it, then you're really following both paths at the same time and seeing how they kind of connect and they mold together. And that's important, once again, for a fan to see and connect, because they takes them to a different level of understanding your guys' art. Yep. That's what I like about you guys is it's not just music. You guys have really kind of made it into your own art, because you have, you have the alter egos that you go by. You do have in the promo pics, the outfits that you guys wore. It gives the art to it. It makes it something more than just music. And I always am a firm advocate of it. Now, some people take it to whole different levels. I talked about these guys on some of my past episodes. I had a band on earlier in the season. They're called Cthulhu Dreamt. Phenomenal band. Now, they got the music, they got a look, they're trippy as hell, but they're like, no, we're going a whole different direction with it. They're like, we just released a tabletop RPG game that has a full symphony behind the game that plays while you're playing it, and we actually wrote the symphony and had artists perform the symphony, and it's actually being released with a full book that goes along with it that we wrote. And I'm like, well, that is some shit you don't hear every day, guys. I got to be honest with you. I'm like, that's a whole different weird level right there. I love it.
That's amazing.
It is pretty cool, though. They're like a cross breed between Dream Theater, Toll, and something completely different.
Holy hell.
Yeah,
wow.
They're a journey. When you listen to that, you feel like you're going into battle with something. You just don't know what.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, Paul, I want to ask you, I mean, obviously, as Chelsea said, whenever the two of you kind of connected and you started jamming, laying down some of the riffs that you had, it instantly just kind of started to flow. Was your plan to really get into any project coming up, or was it something that you just were just jamming, writing your own music, and it just kind of fell together, or were you looking to try to find something?
I've always wanted to do a serious original project. It's just the area in which we live. There's not a lot of drive for that type of a project. And that's one of the things, when we all three got in the room for the first time, and it's like that was the common goal, to have the drive and actually accomplish something and, just make it happen. Time for talk's over. Just do it. It's time to do it. So
I love that, because, that is the hard part. I mean, it's easy to find people that want to be in a band, but it's hard to find people that want to be in a band. And someone could say, what are you saying, Garrett? What I'm saying is that, it's easy to find people that say, hey, yeah, I want to be in a band. Hell yeah. And they'll show up the first 3 practices. But whenever it starts to be every week, and it starts to be having to be serious and having to come to practice with parts written and actually put in serious work on the music, people will fall off very quickly. So it's very hard to find serious musicians, that really want to dedicate the time and that will be at practice, will be on time, will be at the show. And even after you find that, it's hard to keep people in that lane. So I'm glad to hear that the 3 of you have that connection between you, and hope that continues to stay, because there's nothing worse, man. I mean, I've played hundreds upon hundreds of shows over the years, and there's nothing worse than one of your members just not showing up to the show. the Axl Rose thing going on. They're like, I just show up when I want to. Or they show up tripping balls like we've had happen where our drummer, showed up to a really important show. We were headliner. Venue was sold out. I mean, literally shoulder to shoulder, sold out, people cheering for us, ready to go. Where the hell is our drummer at? He shows up a half an hour late. We're like holding people back. Finally, he's there. We're rushing him on stage, getting his drums set up. And I'm like, where's your hi-hat? He's like, oh, bro, I didn't bring it. I'm like, you didn't bring your hi-hat? He's like, nah. I'm like, what is wrong with you? He's like, oh dude, I dropped 5 hits LSD right before I came here. He's like, I'm tripping balls. And meanwhile, I'm looking at this crowd, and I'm like, all right then. And I mean, and we were a serious band. We played all over the place. We did some touring. I mean, and this got to be the point that he was always solid. But after a while, mini rock star, ego. I like to say out of everything I accomplished musically, I never was shit. No matter how much I've accomplished, didn't mean anything. I'm nobody. Even if I made it to be a rock star, I'm still nobody. I don't like the ego thing, but some people let that get to them very quickly at a very young stage.
That's insane.
Yeah. Wow.
Makes for interesting stories there, right?
Yeah.
Now, Donnie, I want to jump to you now, brother. So, I mean, you kind of were the last piece, even though, obviously Tony came in later on. You were kind of the last piece of the trio to really bring the trifecta together, and then the drums fell into place afterwards. But, I mean, you were that third essential piece. So how was that kind of being interviewed by Chelsea in the past, knowing her, never expecting to probably be in a band with her, and then all of a sudden, there you are?
Yeah, I didn't really know Chelsea. I just met her one time. Refreshing, I guess. It was nice to see that somebody else had the same fire up their ass that I have, It's really all I can say about it.
Well, no, that's awesome. I mean, like I said, and it's funny to come back across paths with people. And you're like, oh, I did meet you that one time. How the hell did this happen?
Yeah.
Now, you guys, so I want to ask, you guys are actually, and for the listeners out there, our guests this evening are also from Pennsylvania, like myself. Now, the three of you, are you close in proximity to one another, or are you kind of distant? I mean, how far is the travel amongst you guys?
About a half hour each, maybe?
I'm like 15, 20 minutes, depending on how fast I drive.
That's nice, though. That's beautiful there. To only be within a half an hour of one another makes it very, very nice.
Yeah, roughly.
Tony, unfortunately, has a drive. He's like, what, an hour and 15, hour and a half?
I just always have to drive the farthest now. I don't.
That does make it a little bit
Tony's
more difficult.
The farthest one away, but he was our last link, and he's very new. Very, very new. Mm-hmm. What are we, a month into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Tony. We're sorry you couldn't be here this evening, brother, but much love to you, and I'm glad to see that you found these guys, and I can't wait to see more from the four of you together as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's a difficult part, and some of the bands I have on really surprised me. I forget which band I had on. I think it was War, is a very prominent band right now. They just got off of a very nice long tour. They're playing Incarceration coming up. They're doing a lot of festivals and doing big things. And I think that they said that they're one member, and I could be mistaking them for another band because it blends together after a while, but I think that they said that he's 3.5 hours away from the rest of them.
Wow.
And they're like, so what we do is we write amongst each other, send each other files throughout the month, and then we'll get together every month and a half for actual rehearsal when we're not touring or playing shows, and then he'll take like a week off of work or whatever. I don't know how the hell they schedule that, but he comes out, and for like a week they solidly practice before they leave for tour. He's like, so we do a lot of it non-traditional in person, and then we get together and we bust our asses for a week prior to us leaving for tour. He's like, and we're ready to go. And these guys are phenomenal. It's just funny to see how people make that work. Luckily, you guys are close enough, because one of the things I bring up to a lot of bands on the show now is we have entered into a new age of music, and what is possible now wasn't possible 15 years ago, wasn't possible 20 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever have you. I mean, the fact that we have the technology now to record very nice recordings of vocals, guitar, bass, drums, all from home, if you have the right equipment, and be able to send files to each other digitally and be able to practice to that. Tony can send you guys a drum track that, Paul can sit down and just jam to and write his guitar parts. That wasn't possible years back. I mean, people would be sending me drum tracks that I couldn't make out the drums in the track. They would be so damn rough. Or you'd be trying to play to a drum machine. And unless you got some good programming skills, nah. I've been a guitar player for a very long time, and I cannot program drum machines. So I don't know about anybody else. It just doesn't work out good. So that's a cool age that we're in, but I'm thankful that you guys don't have to worry about that.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, with you guys recently forming, I mean, one of the questions I would ask, and then after this, we'll go ahead and get ready to jump into one of your guys' tracks. Did you guys come from any previous? I know that Donnie did, but as far as you, Chelsea and Paul, did you guys come from projects prior to this, or is this really your first, first serious project?
I've been in cover bands since I've been 14. I'm still in a cover band, but again, nobody has the drive to do the original thing, and something I've always wanted to do. So this is definitely, where my heart is for sure.
Okay, perfect. I like it. What about you, Chelsea?
For me, yes and no. So I come from, my background's a different world than these two guys, because I come from a classical background. I kind of left that world. I met up with some people and we were trying to start a project, and then COVID hit, and then I was also pregnant with my twins, and it just kind of fell apart. And then shortly after that, I met up with Paul. So yes and no, I guess.
Okay, so you started, COVID kind of threw everything for a little bit of a tailspin. That anybody that had any type of plans, I mean, that just got shot to hell. So I'm glad to see. I know obviously it's not over yet, and I hope to see a day here soon where it is, but it is obviously lessened from where it was. I'm glad to see music happening again, shows happening again, people getting out, bands being able to see each other or get together for more practices, because there for 2 years it was sketchy across the board. I mean, people were saying, oh, we can't, because of our families, we can't even see each other as a band, we don't want to get our kids sick or this or that, or no shows are happening, so we're kind of not as tight as we once were. There was just a lot of stuff happening. On the alternate side of that, you did have a lot of people with more time to be able to practice. So there was bands coming out of this saying, like, we got a whole new album, wrote that we weren't expecting on writing. So there was
COVID albums.
Yeah, we came back out with 6 new albums, guys. We weren't even planning on it.
We came out with an EP.
Yeah, you guys came out with an EP.
Brand new band and an EP.
Well, and that makes sense, to be honest with you, because being so new, 1 year plus, having the EP, the music videos, and all you guys have done in that year, I don't know if that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if that would have been possible as easily if the world wouldn't have pretty much shut down.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I think you might be right.
It just gave everybody more time to focus on, let's talk about making this music video. What do we want the music video to be about? Let's talk about these songs. Let's write these songs. Let's get together and do our promo shoot. Where is the hustle and bustle of everyday life is always so busy. It slows things down in a lot of sense, in a creative sense. But when everything shuts down, it's like, well, there's nothing better to do right now. So the only thing I want to do is create. So I've seen a lot of people putting out a lot of material, which as a listener and a fan and as a radio host, I love seeing. It's great for me. I'm watching all this new stuff come out, and I'm like, all right. So it's fun to promote. It's fun to listen to. So why don't we jump into one of those songs? We have 3 songs that I picked this evening, and you guys can tell me which of the 3 you want to start with. Although I think properly it would be the Fall of Me self-titled track, but I have Fall, Parasite, and Fall of Me.
Oh, man.
I would say Parasite.
I think Parasite. It was our first music video. What do you think? Is it? Yeah.
It's kind of like the introduction to our characters.
Our anthem. Yeah. And Parasite, if you watch the music video, it's the intro to our characters, like how we became possessed.
Perfect.
So,
no, we'll do that. And then we'll actually come back from that and let you guys tell us about that. That would actually be a great segue into that, about the characters, why you guys have chosen that, and a little bit about each. So let's go ahead, and folks listening out there, this is Parasite by The Fall of Me on Uncovering the Underground. We'll be right back after this.
The monsters come, they sit and whisper to me. Again, I start to conversate with a voice in my head. A twisted kind of state, a parasite, it sits inside my brain, wrapping my inhibitions. I feel I've gone insane, but I like it. I watch my body change. My mind and eyes go dark. I feel my peace fade. The animal rises to come and play. A twisted kind of state, a parasite, it sits inside my brain, wrapping my inhibitions. I feel I've gone insane, but I like it. I watch my body change, release the animal.
All right, guys, we're back on Uncovering the Underground, and that was the track Parasite by the band The Fall of Me that we've been hanging out for the last 32 minutes and talking shop, going over who they are individually, how they came together as a group, and some of the things that they've done in the last year of being a band, as they are a very new project, as we talked about, but have done quite an extensive amount of work in the last year, which is quite impressive. Once again, that track is Parasite. You can check that out on their EP, as well as go back to YouTube, and you can look up that track and watch the music video, which is a great music video. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in one moment. Now, before I jump into that, we have some comments coming in here. First, we do have, I love that you are a classically trained, or I love that you have a classically trained background, and that would be going to you, Chelsea. We also have one that says, this is my first time hearing your music. Outstanding. You all are very talented. Transitions are amazingly on point. I am so excited to see the music videos. Well, you can check those out, as I just said, on YouTube, and that is Parasite, as I said. You can also check out Fall, and there will be another one we'll be talking about a little bit later on. That's the lyric video that we mentioned earlier. Now, guys, you know, I've seen the music video, but for people who haven't seen the music video, as you talk about the transition from you guys into your character, tell us why the decision for the alternate persona and kind of about that, how that all came together, how you chose who you chose. And I'll go ahead, Paul, and I'll start with you.
Oh, well, I guess at a band meeting, if you will, talking about the direction we wanted to go, we just wanted to stick out and not be the normal melodic rock, female fronted, type band. And we wanted just to have a different niche, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And just, do your research, what type of character do you want to be? It's, I think for all of us, it's kind of an alter ego, or maybe even an extension of your personality amplified. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's more personal to each of us, I would say.
As it should be, though. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, is there a reason? So when you guys picked something, more centered around what connected with you personally, each of you have taken a persona. So that persona, you're saying, is someone or an entity that you felt connected with in some form or fashion because of their said personality traits compared to your own, or can you explain that a little bit? And we can go to Chelsea if you'd like.
Yeah. So the characters they're made up to a certain extent. We all did a bit of research. We looked up different demons, different fallen angel type of characters. And we took little bits and pieces that we liked from different demons within mythology, kind of pieced them together with our own personalities, and then expanded upon who we are in normal life, and then just amplified it. So they're not like some of the, like Locrian, Abaddon especially, that is an actual name within mythology. So is Ariok. Like, these are all actual names within mythology, but we made them a little more personal than what they would actually be if you just happen to look up those regular names.
That makes sense.
I think they really are an extension of our personalities.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like that. So, and I'm someone who has quite an extensive background in occultism, as you heard earlier with my other shows and things. So, yes, I mean, Abaddon, ruler of the bottomless pit, and these different names. And it's interesting because there's something in magic called assumption of godheads, or assumption of god forms. And it's a level that a very advanced practitioner of ceremonial magic will reach if you are very avid in your work. And what this is you actually can channel and call upon different said entities or thought forms. So you could say any one of these three are a thought form, and you could channel that actual thought form. And for people outside of the occult, it sounds crazy to hear that, but you can actually channel it, and you can. Some people would call it self-possession, but it's not necessarily referred to as that. It's assumption of godhead forms, and you will actually feel this being as a part of you, and you actually have different characteristics that are going on. Now, there's also something called egregores. Egregore would be, you creating a group hive mind where the three of you could actually create an entity, give it attributes, and continue to feed it with your energies, with your rituals, with your devotions, with your offerings and things of that nature. And as crazy as it sounds, that group entity that you have created will actually become a real thing. Now,
it's interesting you say that, because I think that's kind of the direction that we're going with our new music that we're going to be writing. We have these characters, and we want to come up with a concept album, and it's going to follow a specific storyline, and it's going to follow like specific entities and things like that, but we're going to be creating those entities. So that's kind of like that's the vibe we're going for.
And that's why I mentioned that, because it's like you are taking already formed deities, but you are kind of adding egregoric attributes to it of your own and feeding that. Now, that's really, not to get too occulty here, but that's really what a lot of people have done with all mythology. I mean, you have an entity that people know about, but then someone adds their own story to it, and then someone else adds their story to it, and then their story to it. And a lot of times, if these entities are real, because some are just completely thought forms and made up, some of them are actual real currents. you start to add attributes, and whenever you were to conjure this thing, it will actually take on the attributes of what version of that you conjure. So you can actually take something that exists and actually kind of mold it and change it. And I talk about that in my other show, where whenever you're summoning something, you have to be careful, because are you summoning someone else's version of it? Are you summoning the real version? Are you summoning 10% of its power? Are you summoning 100? But no, I like that concept, and I don't want to dive too into that on this show. It's kind of a different topic for a different day. But since you guys had kind of mentioned that, yes, I see kind of an egregoric icing on the cake of the entities you have chosen. And with a concept album, I think that would be very strong and potent to tell stories of beings and kind of craft them the way that you want. Just be careful. They might come to life, though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Then you have to be careful with.
Now, as far as, we talked about the music and everything, do we have any plans to see you guys live anytime soon coming around? Do we have any shows coming up that anybody can check out?
Who wants to take it?
Go ahead.
Me? You want me to do it? Yes and no again. So we were a trio for a very long time. We went ahead and recorded this EP without an official drummer. We hired a studio drummer, and now we have Tony, who has been with us for about a month, and he's getting all of these songs down, getting everything ready to roll. So are we ready to play a live show right this very moment? No, because our new drummer is still learning everything. Do we plan to get out there within the next few months and start booking shows and opening for other larger bands? Yes, absolutely. We're in the Pittsburgh area, so that is where you're going to see us first. And then from there, we hope to branch out like crazy.
No, that's great. And I kind of figured with the new drummer kind of coming into the fold that it would take a little while before you guys are officially ready. But, I look forward to seeing you guys live. I go check out a lot of local bands. And luckily, one thing I will say as a musician who has played in multiple states and has done quite a bit over the years, Pittsburgh is a great place to be a part of. I'm in the Pittsburgh area myself. And, it's a wonderful scene. In fact, I was talking to Eric Cabra, I think it was, last episode, great old school metal band, and they were saying about Pittsburgh, and they're like, you know what, Ohio, some of the cities in Ohio, and they're like in Pennsylvania, especially Pittsburgh, they said, has just the best damn scenes. And I says, you know what, a lot of people here don't realize it because you live here and you don't think that. But when you start to go to other places in the country, you realize like, oh, wow, we actually have a phenomenal scene. And over the last 2 years, it's hard to really recognize that because there hasn't been anything going on. But I mean, take the Craft House, for example. Craft House has a show like 4 times, 5 times a week. They're constantly bringing bands on tour. They're constantly having locals open up for larger names, whether it be smaller, larger names, or it be, very large-scale names. Constantly great shows at the Craft House, which has become a #1 premium venue for Pittsburgh. You have the Roxanne Theater. Phenomenal venue. Best damn sound system of any venue I've ever heard anywhere I've ever been in the country. In fact, I was talking to one of the friends of the owner, and they says they put like $1.2 million in their sound system. So they're not playing games. I mean, they're here to destroy. And I'm going to, I think, 2 shows coming up there, and I've been to about 4 there already. And phenomenal. I mean, you hear every single note of the guitar, every single note of the bass, and it's not lost in translation. You hear it. And, then you have some of the venues that have kind of gone away. You have the Rex Theater, kind of disappeared, unfortunately, great venue. Mr. Smalls is still around, still doing big things. I mean, it's you start to tell people this in other cities, and you name like, oh, we have 6 prominent venues that get touring acts consistently. They're like, oh, wow, man, we have 1. And we don't realize that here. So, very fortunate out there. Folks, if you're listening out there and you're close to Pittsburgh, start checking out their shows if you haven't really come here for shows. A lot of great shows. If you're not from here and you're too far away to come here, I'm sorry for you. Now, now let's jump in, and I want to go to Donnie on this one. With you being in prior bands, was it in the light of this band? I mean, was this project? It has a very unique sound. You guys have a very different sound, and I like it. So I would imagine anything that any of you were doing prior to this would have been very different than this. So as a bass perspective, in your band prior, was this kind of a night and day difference for you or no?
Similar. Obviously, it's a little bit more darker and heavier sounding, but the last band I was in was kind of a heavy rock band as well.
Okay.
So not too much different. Just personalities, you know what I mean? I was actually, when I left the last band, I was going to actually retire. I've been playing a long time, and then, I don't know, I guess these guys kind of swept me off my feet.
Sucked you in.
Yeah, they sucked me in. And I was going to quit. I didn't want to do it anymore.
No.
You know?
You're not allowed.
I like that, though.
Not really that much different.
Well, I like that, though, that, you know, when you're at a stage, because I'm someone who, as I said, performed for a long time. I actually retired in 2000. It was really funny. I owned Brutal Business Entertainment, which was doing very large things for a long time, and I retired from music and from my label that I had created in 2020, a week before COVID hit.
Oh, wow.
And I said to everybody, I decided I'm walking away from music after, 15 plus years of playing. And I'm handing my company with 45 signed artists, over to Patrick McElvery, the rooster of Nine Stitch Method. And I'm done, guys. I was like, I'm not selling it to him. I'm handing it to him. He's my boy. I know he's going to run it properly. And I gave it to him. He announced to the world, hey, he's taking over. And then 1 week later, they're like, the world has been hit with a deadly virus. We're shutting down. And he looked at me. He's like, you knew, didn't you? I'm like, I can't tell you if I knew or not. I'm just telling you it was a good time to pull the ejector cord. And then I told him, if you ever walk away, I want it back. He decided after a year and a half of running it that, you know what, buddy, I don't want to do this anymore. And he handed me back the label literally right at the time that all of a sudden the numbers of cases just dropped way back down, and it was like, we're saved now. I mean, we're still cases out there, like I said, but it was like the storm cloud lifted like a week later. And he looked at me, shook his head. He's like, there's something up with you, man. And I was like, nah, man. I was like, you just took care of it for me during the shitty stage. And it was just funny because I completely get what Donnie's saying. I at that point had walked away, but my thinking was that I can tackle this from a different avenue and every week be with bands like you guys and promote you and get you out there, which I've been doing for years prior, but focus more on that. I want to focus more on getting good bands out there heard than I care to get my own music heard. I've done that. I've lived that. And each and every week I get to meet cool people like you. So it's always a blessing. Donnie, I am glad that these guys found you because you know what? Sometimes I look, did I make the right choice? But in my case, I did. And did you make the right choice by sticking around? I think you did. So it all worked out good for everybody. But sometimes it just takes the right people to make you rethink your decisions.
Yeah, I was pretty discouraged there.
It's easy to get there. I mean,
yeah, I've been doing it a long time. Hell, I've been playing 35 years, so I played in all kinds of country, rock, you name it type of bands. So jam band, I was in a jam band for years.
Okay. Yeah, so you kind of seen all avenues of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I just had a new baby girl too at the time, so I was just burned out,
It's easy to get there, and that's where I was, man. I mean, my thing it wasn't even so much the playing. I mean, I could play out every week, and that wasn't a problem. But I'm a loner. I've always kind of been a loner, and I was a headliner most of the shows I played. So I would go and play 3.5 hours away, drive there by myself, sit for 5 hours during the show waiting while every other act played in the corner by myself, not really talking to anybody, come out and perform, and then have to drive 3.5 hours back home by myself. And I was doing this every weekend for years. And that sucked in itself, but that wasn't the reason I walked away or was burnt out. It was managing 40 other artists and 40 other people's lives and their drama and their situations going on, along with your music, along with having kids and everything else. And yeah, it got to a point where I was just running on fumes, and I was like, I'm hitting the ejector cord, pull it. And like I said, I still kept it going. I mean, I ended up getting the label back. I have the radio shows and everything else, but it took a weird transition, which, sometimes life does. And I think it was for the best. But yeah, it's easy to get burnt out, especially in the last couple years. I mean, COVID, I think, made a lot of people face themselves in one way or another. There's a lot of musicians that dropped off the map in the last 2 years. It just vanished. They're like, I'm done. But there's also, as you guys, a lot of musicians that sprung up because they had the time, like I mentioned earlier. So I love that. So kudos to you guys again on that. And thank you for saving Donnie and getting him back into it. Now,
Bass players need love too.
Exactly. They don't get enough love. So bass players need love too. I told a story last week where we were at a venue and our bass player did a guitar swing around his shoulders with his bass.
Oh,
and we were jumping around going crazy. Now, when you swing your guitar all crazy, you normally have strap locks on. Not this guy. He swung his guitar. It came off. It flew about 30 feet through the air, through the venue, came down and just blasted into the cement and bounced like 4 times across the ground. We didn't miss a note. We just kept going. And he looked around like, what do I do? He jumped off stage, ran down, grabbed it, ran back up, strapped it back on, and just started jamming again. Now, there's no way it was in tune. I think it was cracked. But it was just one of those funny stories that I'm looking at. I'm like, damn bass players. Always the bass player. We do have another comment.
I'll tell you what, we get a lot of bad rap online, that's for sure.
People make fun of bass players, but you know what? It's all in fun. But you can't have a good band without bass. I mean, honestly, bass is one of the most essential things, and people joke about it. But without bass, I mean, as a guitarist, without a strong bass player behind me, my licks aren't half of what they would be.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I stay at the top of my game, because of the trash talking that goes on and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think bass players get a bad rap in general.
Bad bass players would make us
bad bass players, exactly. But I can definitely speak for Chelsea as well. We know what we have. Donnie's a phenomenal bass player.
Yeah.
And
he's irreplaceable.
Yeah, he's frightening. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
And we're definitely lucky to have him.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Is what? There's a lot of people. Yeah. So here's the reason bass players get a bad rap, and you kind of mentioned it, but I'm going to say it in a little bit of a different way. You have a band that gets together. You have a strong guitar player. You have a strong vocalist, strong drummer, maybe 2 strong guitar players because a lot of bands have 2. You have that. The one thing that a lot of times you don't have is the bass player. But you have that friend who owns a bass. And he's like, I'll be your bass player. And you're like, oh, shit, Steve wants to be Steve, you're our new bass player. And Steve doesn't know a goddamn thing about playing bass. And Steve becomes the bass player. Now, Steve is a name I'm throwing over thousands of bands out there, and their bass player, because that happens time and time again. And really what Steve knows to do is he plays one-note chords of everything that the guitar player is playing. There is no break-offs. There is no solid, backing of anything. It's just shadowing what the guitar player is playing. He's not a real bassist. So then it gives the kind of the consensus of people watching out there. They're like, man, bass players suck. Bass players are useless, this and that. But no, when you see a real bass player really playing and jamming and really backing up the band, not to be cliche, but let's just throw an easy one out there. When you listen to Rage Against the Machines, when you listen to Korn, those are 2 bands that they're heavily bass driven. And when you hear the bass in it, you're like, these bands would not be at all what they are without the bass. Red Hot Chili Peppers, another one. Without the bass, you wouldn't have the sound that they have. There's a certain sound that gives to the band. So, as you said, when you have a good bass player, it's irreplaceable. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of people just have Steve.
Yeah, we do not.
I say it all the time, you either got it or you don't,
Yeah.
No, that's it. Now we have another comment coming in here. It says, I would love to see you all perform next time I am in Pittsburgh. It would be awesome if you all make it down to Baltimore, Maryland, or Washington, D.C. Let me know. Well, I say follow their page, and they will post it if they are, and you can be there.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
And for anybody listening out there, if you don't already know, follow the page. I mean, if you're listening out there, look up The Fall of Me, like the Facebook page, look for any other sites that they're on, that these kids have these days, because there's just too many for me to know. And
Instagram, TikTok, we have a website. YouTube, all that good stuff.
It's just too much anymore. People are like, you got Snapchat? I'm like, I don't even know what Snapchat is. They're like, you got a TikTok? I'm like, no, I'm cool. I don't want one.
Mine is personally to say hi that way.
I only ever had Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I mean, when people started, and I did have a Twitter, but I never knew how to do it. Like, I never understood Twitter. I'd put up a post, no one's seen it. I had like 2,000 people following me. I would get like 2 likes. And I'm like, I'm doing something wrong here. And my hashtag game is off kilter. So it's just funny the different trends that have come out. And that's the new era that we're in, is that everything's social media driven. So you have to kind of know what you're doing there. Now, we're going to jump into another song here. And give me a second here. We have Fall and Fall of Me. So which of the two do we want to jump into?
Fall.
I think Fall. Yeah.
Fall.
All right, so we're going to do Fall. So, all right, guys, this is Fall by The Fall of Me on Uncovering the Underground. We'll be right back after this.
It's all good.
Fall
All right, guys, we are back on Uncovering the Underground radio show, and that was the song Fall by the group The Fall of Me. We've been with them for about an hour now, talking over all kinds of fun topics and conversation, and we have a little bit to go. If you haven't checked them out yet, or if you're just tuning in right now, don't fret. Listen to the rest of the episode live, as you don't have a choice otherwise to rewind back. But once the show is over, you do get the option of streaming, downloading, and going back to the beginning of the episode. So I advise listening to the whole thing. And if you've already heard the whole thing so far, go back and listen to it again anyways. Why not? Make sure you also check out all of our past episodes. If you are listening right now and didn't hear the beginning of the episode, you can go through Spreaker.com or through the Spreaker app on the app market. That is Spreaker. That allows you to listen to the show, but also use the instant messenger feature to talk to us during the show, ask our guest questions, give your input, and just be a part of the show, which we always advise. Anybody have questions out there, feel free to drop them in right now, and I'd be glad to read them off. We already have some that have come in as far as feedback. No questions so far from anyone, but you could certainly join in on the fun. Now, that was the song Fall, and I would like to hear, from your perspective, Chelsea, that song. What is the feeling? What is the meaning behind specifically that song?
I think Paul should actually take this question.
We're switching it. Let's go to Paul.
He wrote it. This is his. I just sang it.
This is his baby. Okay, so Paul, tell me about your baby here. Let's hear about Paul.
It was wrote during my divorce in about 2009-ish. And it's about the relationship, I guess, and my perspective on the significant other at the time.
Okay. So a lot of emotion, a lot of just build up, aggression, sorrow, everything, just all the feelings into one song, which is you can feel emotion in the song, so that you were able to portray that, and then these guys were able to bring that to life as well, which is awesome.
Absolutely, Chelsea just killed it. So
it's nice to be able to take something that's not a pleasant thing and make it pleasant. It came to be a beautiful song that your fans certainly enjoy, but I'm sure the things you had to go through to write that song were not fun, were not pleasant. So
no, not per se, no.
Exactly. So sometimes
I didn't lose a finger, but
no vodka bottles were thrown at your fingers.
No.
Okay. Oh man, talking about that's been a wild ride. So for anybody listening out there, and I'm sure most of the world has been kind of tuning into in one way or another to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, it is the funniest thing I have certainly ever watched. Just because, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I just don't give a shit. But her legal team is the worst set of lawyers that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the amount of mistakes that they have made. Now, I understand. This is a high-profile case. The pressure is on. You have the entire world watching, and you are live at all times pretty much. So it is a lot of pressure. But if you can't handle the heat, don't go in the kitchen. I mean, if you are not able to handle that, step out. I mean, they're saying, they called people to the stand and gave the wrong name so far when they're calling them up. The other day I heard her so flustered. I don't know their names, but the woman attorney for Amber Heard was so flustered because she got shut down so many times by Johnny Depp's female lawyer. She just stood there. She went, she actually started making like weird noises. And then she goes, I'm trying. Like said it out loud to herself, and I'm like, you just said out loud, I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm like, man, you're about to snap. I'm like, I can see the wire starting to sizzle. It's awesome. It is so fun to watch someone be destroyed so heavily. Because I'm sick like that.
Make up shit like that.
Yeah.
And here's my thing. I mean, now she is bringing out witnesses that. are saying that they had seen signs of physical abuse. They've never seen it actually happen. No one's ever seen it actually happen, but they've seen bruises on her face. Now, I could walk into the bathroom right now and punch myself in the face 3 times. I don't never want to do that, but if I had to, I would. But I mean, that's easy to do. So people have seen the signs. So there are a lot of people now kind of fair weather fans. There are people now I'm seeing put up comments, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some truth behind this. And I'm like, you guys change as quick as the wind does.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, her entire legal team, her witnesses, her story is just trash juice.
What I'm kind of hoping comes out of this is all the crap that men get accused of for years and years. Hopefully that it starts to open people's eyes that you need to prove this stuff before you just start accusing,
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I mean, and it's happened both ways, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times people overlook, that side of it. If a woman's abused or even making allegations of being abused, it becomes a very large thing, as it should. But whenever a man's like, I've been being abused by a woman for years, people laugh. Like, they think it's funny. They're like, okay, man, okay. And I'm like, yeah, it's not funny. When you live in a relationship where you love someone, and just the same as a woman does, and you don't want to leave, but she beats the shit out of you all the time, it's the same thing. You don't want to leave. You love them, and then they're like, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, honey. And then you stay there, and then they punch you in the face again. It's a sad thing, so it's not a joke, and it's just kind of showcasing that. And I think a lot will come of this, and a lot has come from it, in the fact of, I mean, she's been canceled now, so she's not going to be in anything coming up.
Good.
Yeah, Disney, which I don't think Disney was really working with her anyway, but Disney already made a statement that they will never work with her. Warner Brothers already made a statement she's now dropped. She is not going to be in Aquaman 2, or they're cutting her parts down to almost nothing, but they're actually thinking about removing her altogether. And pretty much several other very large Hollywood corporations who have to do with filming have already said that she has now been blacklisted. So what I think, my predictions, folks, is that this is actually going to catapult Johnny Depp to a huge level, because he has a movie going to drop shortly after this. And he's already filmed it. It's been waiting to come out. So this is going to go. He's going to win the trial. His movie's going to drop. All the support around the world that's going in for him now, everyone's going to go to the movie theaters to see it or download it to Netflix or whatever the hell it's on these days. He's going to just catapult and be in all kinds of new movies and get all kinds of new offers. She's going to be shut down and being absolutely nothing. It's going to be a complete flip-flop. And his career is going to drop, as it should. I mean, as long as it is bullshit, as we all believe, as it should be. He should be catapulted as being one of the greatest actors ever. Yeah. So, it was funny. I was on Netflix earlier and I was scrolling through some movies, and they're not dumb. They're like, okay, Johnny Depp's popping right now. It was like 15 Johnny Depp suggestions on there. I'm like, okay, but it just made me think, like, man, this dude has played some really iconic roles.
Absolutely.
So I can't wait to see what happens from it. But that's, you can't escape it. So this is the first I've publicly talked about it. But you can't escape it. Anywhere I go, everyone's talking about it. I'm like, goddamn, will this trial end already?
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't end the way that we all think it's going to, there's going to be some problems.
Yeah.
He's already won in the public.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what people have already said. He won either way. So even if he loses, he still won what he wanted to, because he got the acceptance that he wanted from everyone out there. So he'll still win either way. But yeah, if he doesn't win, I can see some crazy shit happening. Rioting, the whole justice system's a failure. So we'll see. Now, it's funny because someone I was going to mention this evening and bring up, and he just actually chatted in, was going to be that I came across you guys I was suggested you guys from Dakota. Dakota is the owner, for anybody listening out there, the owner and operator of DI Records, a friend of mine. He's made some great suggestions over time. We've been buddies for a few years now. I went to him as I was getting ready to launch Season 2 of Uncovering the Underground, because for anybody that has followed the show, we put out 65 episodes. We called it a night, closed up shop, we were done. Well, then I was able to make it happen again, because I had 2 other radio shows. Now I've been able to fit into my life all 3 radio shows. And I went to Dakota and said, hey, I need a couple really badass bands that I want you to send to me that I can interview. And you guys were, I think, one of the very first that he mentioned.
Oh, thanks, Dakota.
he wants to talk over a question, I guess, and have you guys answer. It's kind of a funny one.
Okay.
Argument: pop or soda?
Dakota, come on. It's pop. Get out of here.
I'd actually call it both, soda or pop, or soda pop.
Ew.
Yeah, both.
She says, "Ew."
I guess I just
Depends where I'm at.
do away with the argument altogether. I call it name brand. If I want a Pepsi or a Coke or a Dr. Pepper, that's what it is.
All right, I have to be honest. If I'm anywhere out of Pennsylvania and like if I was doing like a classical contract and I was in the Midwest, then I would call it soda to blend in with everybody else. But you don't win, Dakota. You don't win. It's pop. We're in Pittsburgh.
I call it pop myself. I have said soda a couple of times. I think it's kind of, as Donnie said, it's kind of interchangeable. Sometimes randomly I'd be like, are you going to drink that soda? And it's not something I normally say. I normally call it pop. No, I haven't drank any soda or pop in years. I quit drinking it all. But, it's funny to hear that different people, if you go out west and you say pop, they're like, what? You're like, pop.
What?
They're like, what the hell's pop?
Yeah.
And you're like, soda.
Yeah.
Soda. It's like certain areas. If you go to Connecticut and you say hoagies, they're like, hoagie? I'm like, yeah, hoagie. They're like, what?
Hoagie.
I'm like, hoagie. They're like, what the hell's a hoagie? I'm like, grinder. They're like, oh, grinder. I'm like, you
Oh.
When I first moved to Wisconsin years ago, I went into a grocery store and asked them if they had any pepperoni to make pepperoni rolls, and they had no clue what a pepperoni roll was up there.
What?
Yeah.
You have a pepperoni roll? They're like, get out of our store now.
Yeah. I had no clue what that was.
That's like asking for chipped ham anywhere else in America.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny, too, is we don't think of it. One of my favorite foods in the world is pierogies. Now,
Oh, yeah.
we don't think of it because Pittsburgh has a heavy Polish base to it, so there's a lot of pierogies here. It's always been a big pierogi city, pierogi state. But when you go to a lot of other places, they don't know about pierogies or they've never eaten them. They know about them. I don't know how many people I've come across in other areas of America that somehow the topic of pierogies comes up, weirdly enough. And they're like, what? And I'm like, a pierogi. They're like, what's a pierogi? I'm like, mashed potatoes surrounded by a noodle. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Or they do, and they're like, oh, I've heard of them. We've never eaten them. And I'm like, it's such a strange thing because I'm like, I've eaten thousands of them. How have you never eaten one? Like, I need to go find them at the store, and we're making them tonight. So we have a lot of really strange things here in Pittsburgh that people just don't really know about.
Love it.
A lot of Polish food, though, like halushki. Halushki is just phenomenal. I mean, talking about it right now makes me want a bowl of it. But a lot of people have no idea what that is. Now, I do have a comment that came in. It says, fall was excellent. I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you.
And then I have Dakota chiming in saying, listen, Grindr is an app, not food.
He's right.
I don't want to know nothing about you being on Grindr, Dakota.
Ooh.
Don't want to know nothing about it, brother. All right. So I ask every guest that comes on a series of questions, and you guys certainly don't escape it. If you had the option, and we'll go to each of the three of you, is that we'll work our way around. If you had an option of either writing a song that was a mega hit, that you guys would become rich from it, you guys would become famous from it, you would be set off this one song. Everyone would love you for this one song. But every other song you wrote in the public eye would be a failure. Or B, every song you guys write, you are very proud of. You fully back it in every way. But no one seems to ever pay it any mind. What do you pick? And I'm going to start with you, Donnie.
Right now I'm in financial hell, so I'll take the one that's the good song and screw the rest.
All right, so you're going with A.
Yep.
I like
Just
it.
for right now.
Okay, and Chelsea, what are you picking?
Yeah.
Because I have children, going with A. Because then they can have the money.
Yep. That's what I'm going with too.
All right, and Paul?
I'll be the oddball and go with B.
I knew it.
I write for myself, so if I'm happy with it, I mean, it's more therapeutic for me, and I'm a recluse anyhow, so screw all you all.
Whatever.
You know, honestly,
Don't do
we
it.
get a lot more B's than we do A's. So tonight, I'm it's cool to see the two of you picked A, and then obviously you, Paul,
I
picked
think it's because
B.
we have kids. We have young
Yeah, well,
kids.
Chelsea and I both have 2 kids. That's why.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, I don't know. I'm teeter-totter. I have kids myself, but I still probably would pick B. But I get where A is coming from, you know? And I had someone say, well, you know what, man? And this was kind of a different perspective. Someone, I think it was last season, said, I'd take A. I'd get rich and famous. And I would still support every damn song I ever wrote because I would never release anything I don't support. He's
Well,
like, so
absolutely.
I would be
Yeah.
rich and supporting all my. And I'm like, well, that's a good perspective. I never looked at it that way. Neither has any of my guests. But that really wasn't the point. The point was that, yeah, you wrote that one-hit wonder. It's almost like the Freebird thing where obviously Skinner has a ton of great songs, but it's always like, play Freebird. You know, it's like that thing where every time you come out on stage, you're so happy to play a new song. All right, guys, we're going to play a song off of our new album. And then they jump and they're like, play Parasite. And you're like, motherfucker. You're like, that was 3 albums ago, man. Like, I just want to play something new. You know, and that's kind of how the feeling was behind that is that you would hate to have that happen because you're stuck in that loop. Now, the other question I always ask everybody is if you had all of the time back that you've ever spent in music, reading about music, performing music, recording music, you know, everything, practice, all of it, every second right now, I'm a genie. Poof, it's yours. To put into one other thing specifically, only one, and it is outside of music.
Wow.
What is it? And let's go backwards. I'm starting with you, Paul.
Wow. Oh my.
God.
I would probably say because obviously I'm infatuated with old houses, so probably fixing up old homes like Victorian homes and stuff.
That's
I
cool.
would probably obsess with something like that.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. I love Victorian homes. I grew up in a Victorian home, and me and my wife are looking to move again. We own a home now, but we wanted to move pre-pandemic, and then that just shut that to hell. So we're kind of holding back for a while, but you know, we're not going to buy a Victorian home. But I always have told her, I'm like, my dream is to buy a Victorian home and live in one again. But there's just so much, as you said, so much work that needs done. And I want to keep it Victorian. I want to keep it with stained glass windows. I want to keep it with the old trim on it. It's never happening, but it's a dream.
If you take the time that I have in music and put into something like that, yeah, that would be a lot of time for sure.
Me too. So if I had that time, I definitely could do the Victorian home then, because I've certainly put a lot myself. Now, Chelsea, let's go to you.
Well, I've already got 2 degrees into music, undergrad and master's. So let's just take it to another major. You know what? I would have went to law school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you know what? And if you would have done this prior, you, my lady, could be Amber Heard's attorney.
I probably would have done a better job, but I would have never, ever been here.
No, that's awesome, though, going to law school. That's why I love these answers, because you do get a very, you know, wide range of answers. I mean, even between the two of you, a very wide range of answers. So why don't we cap it off on this one with you, Donnie? What are you picking?
I'm kind of obsessive about heavy equipment. That's what I've done for a trade for years. Bulldozers, all that stuff. I was trying to start my own company when I was young.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that, man. A lot of money in it. If you can get it going and get it off the ground properly, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, I worked in the oil field for years for somebody else. And to me, I kind of wasted all my years with them when I shouldn't have. I could have been doing it myself, you know.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. Hindsight's a bitch sometimes.
Yes, sir.
And I have one last one for you guys. Then we're going to go over where people can check you guys out at, any last announcements you guys want to give, and then we'll jump into your last song for the evening. This last one's obscure and kind of morbid in a way, but it's fun to see where people's minds go on this. It's another Would You Rather. So would you rather take choice A, which is, well, let me set the scenario first. The scenario is it's the end of your life. You know that in the next few moments you will be gone. So the scenario is, would you rather choose A, being with your family and loved ones, holding them close, embracing and kissing them, but not being able to write or say a single word to them? There is no verbal communication at all in the last moments of your life. Or option B, you can say everything you've ever wanted to say to them, every feeling you need to get out, or even if it's as simple as just saying, I love you with all my heart, whatever it might be, you can say it, but you're separated by a barrier and cannot embrace each other, and you can only say it. There is no connection there other than simple audio of talking to one another. What do you choose? And now I want to go in a different order because I started with the guys each in opposite order. We're going to go to you, Chelsea, first.
I knew it. I knew I was going to be first. A, 100%, like without hesitation. I would want to be able to touch them and see them. I don't need my words to convey a feeling. They'll know what I feel and what I mean and what's going on. As long as I have my boys there, then I'll be content with that. They know, I don't need to say anything.
Absolutely. There's a lot that can be said without saying nothing. Mm-hmm. Or without saying anything, I should say. So, no, I completely feel that. And then we will go to Donnie. We'll go to you next. What would you choose?
I'm with Chelsea on the same way. One, because I already tell my kids every day how I feel.
So they know.
They already know. Yeah, my wife, my kids, everything. They already know. And
then we'll finish it out with you, Paul.
I would say A as well, but on the same token, I've always had a strong feeling that I'm going to die alone. So,
way to bring the joy right at the end of the show.
I mean, your email address is Dear Sad Soul, so right. It makes sense.
Everybody's going to be emailing.
No shit, I should have said that.
You're going to meet all kinds of friends now, Paul.
Yeah, you're going to make all kinds of friends tonight. There's going to be all kinds of people reaching out to you. It's interesting, and I like this question because there is on any of these questions, there's really no right or wrong, obviously. And most of the time, the option is A. That is the more popular of the two. But every once in a while, you have that analytical mind, that person who has to talk. They're like, oh, no, I'm saying what I got to say. They're like, I would love to hold them, but no, goddamn it, they're hearing every word I have to tell them before I go. And I love it because sometimes it's who you would expect. Sometimes it's the person you wouldn't expect, It's like the quiet one in the band who never talks. And they're like, oh, no, I'm saying everything I got to say before I go. So it's always interesting to see everybody's answers on that. Now, I would like to have you guys, and any of the three of you can jump in and do it to whoever you want on this one. Tell us where it is we can check you out. Anything else announcement-wise that you want us to know about, any thank yous you want to give. And then we'll go ahead and, I'll give some announcements real quick. We'll go into your last song and fade out for the evening.
Okay, I guess they all pointed. Everybody pointed me, so I'll take it. So we have a website, thefallofmeofficial.com. We are on Facebook, also The Fall of Me Official. We are on Instagram. It is The Fall of Me Music. And we're also on TikTok, which is The Fall of Me Music as well. I try to put slightly different content on all of them. We're going to have some cool TikToks coming out here pretty soon. As far as announcements go, June 3rd is when the lyric video to Temptation officially drops. Special shout out to Tim Amar on that because he is our male guest vocalist and did the duet with me, and it's pretty awesome. And then we just
speaking of Tim,
we just recorded a metal cover of the Phantom of the Opera. And we're going to be shooting a music video for it as well soon. So I would say within maybe like the next 6 weeks or so, all of that is going to be dropping with a music video. We'll be sure to make announcements about it. We're very, very excited about it. We're going to be dropping little TikToks and spoilers about our time in the studio and things like that. So be sure to follow us on TikTok. That's where I've been posting most of our content these days. So yeah, thank you to Tim Amar. Thank you to Dakota from DI Records, who, you know, decided to sign this brand new band and help get us out there and liked our music and took a shot on us. Thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who has listened to our music, and thank you to all of you guys that are listening tonight. And you like our stuff. We really appreciate your feedback. And yeah, just check out all of our social media pages. We're going to be playing live shows soon. Give us a few months. We're going to be ready to go, and I promise we're going to be out there. So thank you for the support so far.
All right, guys, you heard it. So make sure if you're listening out there that you go to their pages, you give them a like and a follow, share them around to your family and friends, pick up their EP, support them in any way that you can as they get get everything kind of fine-tuned with their new drummer and get out in the scene and start playing live shows. Please go and see them at a venue near you and support them. As I say each and every episode, you are the lifeblood that keeps us going as musicians, so please continue to support local and underground music and, you know, give them feedback. Let them know what you think of their music and just help them in any way that you can as a listener and a fan out there. Thank you to the listeners this evening. Make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on this. If you have any questions or concerns, as I said, hit me up at celestialoddities@gmail.com. That's celestialoddities@gmail.com. Freighter Crow Facebook page, Uncovering the Underground group page, or the Brutal Business Entertainment Facebook page. Real quick announcements before we play the last song for the evening and fade out. We have 3 more episodes. It is possible for 4 because I would like to try to get Miss Red rescheduled back on. Unfortunately, there was some complications with that episode and having her on, and we had to cancel that one. And she wasn't feeling the best, the evening of the show. So I wanted to try to get her back on. I just don't know how I'm going to fit it into the schedule because in June, in June, we have the kickoff of our other shows. So right now we have 3 episodes left planned. May 26th, we have comedian stand-up comic Lauren Petrie. We have June 9th, the Renaissance Rock Orchestra coming on. I'm very excited about that one. And June 23rd is the finale of Season 2 of Uncovering the Underground. And this is a little bit of a different episode, folks. We are going to have you on. Who's the guest on this one? You are. So if anybody wants to call in, be a part of this, talk shop, talk about music, different discussions and topics, who knows what kind of craziness we can get into for an hour and a half on this episode. But I will be putting up a post about it. People that want to call in, let me know. I'll have to pre-organize it a little bit because I can't have 15 people calling in at once. It would be too many lines. It would sound like garbage. So we will put up a post about it. Be watching out for that in the Freighter Crow page. And we'll have several of you out there on the show. Let's talk shop and have a good time. So I do want to thank everyone for supporting Season 2 of Uncovering the Underground, for listening in this evening. As I said, go give the Fall of Me a like, share, and follow. And other than that, we have one final song this evening, and we're going to finish it out with the title track, The Fall of Me. So before I jump into that, thank you guys for coming on this evening and letting me get to know you guys better. Good luck at everything that you have coming up, and we're going to jump into it. Oh, not a problem. Much love to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. This is The Fall of Me by The Fall of Me on Uncovering the Underground. We'll catch you next time.
Another day and I don't believe the burning image in my mind.